Hello everyone, welcome back to another online session of your English class as we are going to start our term 2 syllabus. So for today's lesson, I have purposely picked this very humorous and funny story from your Beehive book. This is chapter 7, Packing, written by Jerome Ch-7. Okay, tell me, have you ever gone on a trip? What kind of trips do you like the most? Everyone, we all get excited when we come to know that we are going on a trip. Okay, tell me, how do you feel about having to pack for the trip? Is it an interesting task for you or a boring task? Okay, fine. We know that we have to pack, and finally, we have done the packing, whether we find it interesting or boring, right? Okay, now tell me, have you ever discovered on the trip that you have forgotten to bring a few things you very much need, or you cannot find it on the trip easily? Does this discovery makes you angry or laugh at yourself? I would love to hear your answers during my live class. Without creating much suspense, let me tell you that this is a very hilarious account of three friends who are attempting to pack their luggage before going on for a vacation. And we will discover that by the end they have completed this packing task in a quite messy way. The entire narration is comical in nature, and I can promise that you cannot help grinning all the time while you are reading this chapter. So, without taking much time, let us start reading the chapter. But before that, let us know something about the author as well, very quickly. So here's some information about our writer, Jerome Ch-7. He was born on 2nd May 1859 and died on 14th June 1927. He was an English writer and humorist, and this writer is best known for his comic travelogue which he has written in 1889, Three Men in a Boat, right? And the chapter which we are reading today is actually an extract from this comic travelogue only. Even movies are also produced on this famous work. So from here only you can see that how important this work or how best work it is of this writer. Other best works include the essay collection Idle Thoughts of an Idle Fellow, which he has written in 1886, the Second Thoughts of an Idle Fellow, then he has written Three Men on the Bummel. Even a sequel to this comic travelogue has been written by this writer, Three Men in a Boat, and several other novels are there. Very interesting, humorous, witty pieces of writing we can find of this writer. So you can search on Google and you can read it. Worth reading. The work of this writer is worth reading, right? So let's start reading the chapter. I said I would pack. So here I has been used for our writer, Jerome Ch-7. He is the narrator of the story. He said he offered that he would pack. He would do the packing for the trip. I rather pride myself on my packing. And why did he offer so? Because he was very much proud on himself that he was an excellent packer. He was very good in packing. Packing is one of those many things that I feel I know more about than any other person living. So he was so proud, he was so confident about packing that he thought that no other living being on this earth can do as good packing as the writer could do. It surprises me myself sometimes how many such things there are. So, the writer is saying that even I myself couldn't believe on my qualities sometimes, that how many things are there in which I am really good. I impressed the fact upon George and Harris and told them that they had better leave the whole matter entirely to me. I impressed means I told them, I emphasize on the fact that they had to leave this job entirely on me. I would do the packing. They fell into the suggestion with a readiness that had something uncanny about it. Fell into means agreed, readiness very quickly, uncanny, strange or mysterious. So they agreed with the suggestion, with this suggestion that okay, Jerome could do the packing with very quickly. And here Jerome Ch-7 is telling that he found something mysterious in that how could they be so quickly agreed to a suggestion. George spread himself over the easy chair and Harris cocked his legs on the table. So now we can cocked होता है raised and stretched. ठीक है. And George spread himself on this easy chair. He just sat on this easy chair in a relaxed manner, and Harris raised his leg and stretched it on the table, and he even also relaxing now. This was hardly what I intended. This was actually not what I meant. It was not my intention. What I had meant, of course, was that I should boast the job and that Harris and George should potter about under my directions. What I meant actually that I would boast the job, I would supervise the job, and Harris and George actually potter about means work, actually do the packing work under my direction, under the writer's direction. I pushing them aside every now and then with, oh you, here let me do it. There you are, simple enough, really teaching them as you might say. So when they start doing it, when I would be giving them direction, then in between when they are not doing it correctly, then I would push them. हर एक मोमेंट के बाद मैं उनको कहूँगा कि ओ यू here let me do it, चलो मुझे करने दो. See, it's so simple in a way as if I am teaching them. तो आप कह सकते हो कि I would really teach them how to do the packing. They are taking it in the way they did irritated me. Now they have taken my words in other way, so it actually irritate me. There is nothing does irritate me more than seeing other people sitting about doing nothing when I am working. So it was actually something that irritates me a lot when I am working and the other are resting. They are not doing anything, and this only had happened. I lived with a man once who used to make me mad that way. Now he just went into flashback, and writer is telling that many years ago he was living with the man who was actually in the same nature. He would loll on the sofa. Loll means sitting or standing in a lazily manner. So he would relax on the sofa and watch me doing things by the hour together, and he would keep on watching me working for hours. He said it did him really good to look on at me messing about, and he actually told me that this scene when I would be working and he would be sitting relaxing and watching me, actually this sight gave him real pleasure. Now I am not like that. Now the writer is saying I am not a kind of person. I can't sit still and see another man slaving and working. I am not a person like that person, that if someone is working like slaves, like servants in front of me, means someone is really doing some hard work in front of me, I cannot sit still. मैं नहीं बैठ सकता. I want to get up and superintend. What kind of person I am? I would get up and I would superintend. I would supervise and walk around with my hands in my pocket. The writer actually also a kind of person who is not going to actually help the person, but he would interrupt in the task. He would give the directions and tell him what to do. अब मैं क्या करूँगा? I would not sit in a relaxed manner, but in spite of relaxing, I would get up and I would interfere in the task, and I would keep on giving the direction to the person who is doing the task. It is my energetic nature. I can't help it. And he is very proud on this quality, and he is telling that it is my energetic nature and I can't help it. However, I didn't say anything but started the packing. Now he said ki somehow, as he only had given the suggestion, so he had to start the packing. It seemed a longer job than I had thought it was going to be, but I got the bag finished at last and I sat on it and strapped it. Now the writer is telling that it seemed really a tedious job to pack a bag than I thought it would be. But somehow he got this task finished. He sat on the back of he had to apply some pressure on the back of the bag to get it zipped up, right? Aren't you going to put the boots in? Said Harris, and at the moment when he just strapped the bag, Harris asked, wasn't he going to pack his boot inside the bag? And I looked round and found I had forgotten them. Writer यहाँ बता रहे हैं कि he actually looked around and he found that he actually had forgotten to pack his boot. That's just like Harris. He couldn't have said a word until I had got the bag shut and strapped, of course. He is kind of person. He is that kind of person only. He had actually noticed earlier that I was not putting my boots in the bag. I forgot to pack them, but he didn't tell me till I have not packed the bag and strapped it, because he wanted to get an opportunity to mock at the writer, as writer has claimed that he was very good in packing, so he just wanted to make fun of him. And George laughed, one of those irritating, senseless laughs of his. They do make me so wild. And when Harris informed him, and now writer actually forgot to pack something, it means he had to repack, right? So now George laughed on him, and writer is telling his irritating and senseless laugh really makes me angry. I opened the bag and packed the boots in, and then just as I was going to close it, a horrible idea occurred to me. Now, what did the writer do? He reopened the bag and he packed his boot inside the bag. Now, when he was about to close his bag, when he was about to zip it up, the writer is telling that a terrible idea occurred in his mind. And what was that idea? Had I packed my toothbrush? Had he packed his toothbrush? I don't know how it is, but I never do know whether I have packed my toothbrush. Now the writer is telling that it always happened to him. He doesn't understand, but he never ever remains sure about the packing of his toothbrush whenever he has to do the packing for any trip. My toothbrush is a thing that haunts me when I am traveling. Haunts me means something that came in your mind or came into your brain again and again. So the writer here is telling that toothbrush is a thing which keep on moving in my mind, whether I have packed it or not. Such ideas always keep on going in my mind whenever I have to do traveling, whenever I have to go on any trip, and makes my life a misery. And it is really a terrible thing that happened to me during every trip. I dream that I haven't packed it. The previous night of any trip, I always have a kind of nightmare about packing the toothbrush and wake up in a cold perspiration. और वो इतना डरावना होता है कि मैं cold perspiration में sweating, कि मैं I completely sweat out after getting afraid of this idea and get out of the bed. और morning में जैसे ही मैं उठता हूँ, I just hunt for my toothbrush, and in the morning I pack it before I have used it. Or the morning I have to leave for any trip, the night I keep on dreaming about the toothbrush. जैसे ही मैं सुबह उठता हूँ, I just pack it before using it and have to unpack again to get it. Then I have to unpack it as I have to brush the morning when I am leaving for the trip, and it is always the last thing I turn out of the bag. और ये हमेशा एक ऐसी चीज़ होती है विच आई टुक आउट फ्रॉम माई बैग एंड देन आई रीपैक एंड फॉरगेट इट. और फिर मैं अपना बैग दोबारा पैक कर लेता हूँ बिना इसे डाले, एंड देन हैव टू रश अपस्टेयर्स फॉर इट. एंड एज आई एम लिविंग फॉर द स्टेशन, आई हैव टू रश अपस्टेयर्स अगेन एट द लास्ट मोमेंट एंड कैरी इट टू द रेलवे स्टेशन, फाइनली wrapped up in my pocket handkerchief, right? So this is something which really create a trouble whenever the writer has to do the packing. Of course, I had to turn every mortal thing out now, and of course, I couldn't find it. Now, as this idea had occurred, and he always faced this problem that he couldn't be sure about the packing of toothbrush, so he had to recheck whether this time he has packed it or not. So he had to turn every mortal, means something that is related to dead. Here it has been used for non-living things. So he had to turn out all the content from the bag again, and of course I couldn't find it. I rummaged the things up into much the same state that they must have been before the world was created and when chaos reigned. Means he was taking out now the each and every content which he has packed in the bag, right? And now the whole chaos mess had been created. Of course, I found George's and Harry's 18 times over, but I couldn't find my own. Of course, when I was checking each and everything, when I was taking out each and everything from the bag again and again, I found George and Harry's toothbrushes 18 times, but he couldn't find his own even a single time. I put the things back one by one and held everything up and shook it. I just keep the things back one by one, but I hold them and I'll shook each and everything. Then I found it inside a boot, and finally I got my toothbrush, which was actually lying inside a boot. I repacked once more, and again he had to repack the bag once more. So now we can see even packing could be a very tedious long task, right? When I had finished, George asked if the soap was in. I said I didn't care a hang whether the soap was in or whether it wasn't, and I slammed the bag shut and strapped it, and I found that I had packed my spectacles in it, and I had to reopen it. Now he had finished the packing, and when he was about to shut, he was about to close strap, he was about to lock the bag again. George asked him whether he had packed the soap or not. Now he got so frustrated with this packing job that he said he least care. He didn't bother whether he had packed the soap or not, whether it is inside the bag or not. And he just slammed the bag, means he just bang it, he just close it with the force, and then he strapped it and found that I had packed, and then he realized that he actually packed his specs in it. He left his specs inside the bag and had to reopen it, and now again to take out his specs as he needed it before the trip, so he had to reopen it. It got shut up finally at 10:05 p.m. and then there remained the hampers to do. So finally the writer was able to complete the packing task by 10:05 p.m. So then only the hamper means the basket in which they were supposed to carry the food items. So only the hamper was left to pack. Harry said that we should be wanting to start in less than 12 hours time and thought that he and George had better do the rest, and I agreed and sat down and they had a go. Now Harris said that there are only 12 hours when left when they have to start the journey. So it is better that now the hamper task can be left for George and Harris. They would do the task, and better that I do some rest. And I also agreed and sat down, and now it was their turn to pack the hamper. They begin in a light-hearted spirit. Light-hearted means cheerful mood. They begin packing in a very cheerful spirit, evidently intending to show me how to do it. Evidently means it was clearly intending. It was clear, their intention was very clear that they wanted to show me that how to do the packing. I made no comment. I only waited. I knew how good packers they are, so I didn't made any comment and I just waited. Then let them start, and they are going to create a mess. With the exception of George, Harris is the worst packer in this world. तो जॉर्ज की बात करें, जॉर्ज के अलावा हैरिस इज ऑल्सो अ वर्स्ट पैकर इन द वर्ल्ड. I looked at the piles of plates and cups and kettles and bottles and jars and pies and stoves and cakes and tomatoes, etc., and felt that the things would soon become exciting. Now he could see the things, piles of the things. They are the way they have been collected at one place to get packed. That scene only was telling that it is going to be very exciting. It did, and it actually became very excited. They started with breaking a cup, and they first of all, as they start their packing of hamper, first of all they just broke a cup. That was the first thing they did. They did that just to show you what they could do and to get you interested. So ये पहली चीज है, और they actually did it just to show कि क्या क्या वो कर सकते हैं, and to get you interested, right? Then Harris packed the strawberry jam on top of a tomato and squashed it, and they had to pick out the tomato with the teaspoon. Now the next thing what they have done, They just pack the tomatoes, and on the top of the tomatoes, as tomato is something very soft, so upon the tomatoes they just put the strawberry jam bottles, and actually the tomatoes got squashed. They turn into a pulp, and that pulp they had to pick finely with the teaspoon. And then it was Joe's turn, and he trod on the butter. And now it was Joe's turn to pack the basket, and he just started by stepping on the butter. He stepped on the butter. I didn't say anything, but I came over and sat on the edge of the table and watched them. Jerome is telling that he didn't say anything, he didn't interfere in their task of packing the hamper, but he just came over and he sat at the corner of the table and he was watching them silently. It irritated them more than anything I could have said, because his silence, he knew that his silence would irritate them the more. I felt that, and he could really feel that it actually worked. His silence was making them nervous and exciting, and they stepping on things and putting things behind them, and then they actually forgot, and they were not finding when they wanted to pack those things in the hamper. They packed the pies at the bottom and put heavy things on top and smashed the pies in. The whole packing was going wrong. The soft things they were packing at the bottom of the hamper, and then they were keeping the heavy things on the top of those soft things, and then they were smashing each and every soft thing. First they scratched the tomatoes, and now they smashed the pies. They upset salt over everything. Now they overturned a bottle of salt that was lying on the table over everything. And as for the butter, और अगर butter की बात करें, I never saw two men do more with 1 and 2 pence worth of butter in my whole life than they did. Jerome बता रहे हैं 1 and 2 pence worth of butter means a very small piece of butter. Jerome is telling that he had never seen such a mess created by such a small piece of butter by anyone else that than these two men have created. After George had got it off his slipper, George ने अपने slippers, it got stuck to his slipper when he trod on it, when he stepped on it. Then George got it off from his slipper and they tried to put it in the kettle. And then both of them tried to put this butter in the kettle. It wouldn't go in, and what was in wouldn't come out. Now it got stuck in the middle. The portion, the part of the butter which was out, it was not going in, and what had already entered in the kettle, it was not coming out. They did scrape it out at last. Then they had to scrape the butter to take it out from the kettle, put it down on the chair, and then they put it on a chair, and Harris sat on it. And Harris, without knowing that George had put the butter on the chair, he just sat on it and it stuck to him, and it got stuck at his back, and they went looking for it all over the room. Now the search of butter has started. I'll take my oath, I put it down on that chair. Now George said that he is ready to take an oath. He swore, he promised that he had put that butter on this chair only. Staring at the empty seat, he was looking at the empty chair, and he was telling that he promised that he had put the piece of butter on the chair only. He had kept it there only. I saw you do it myself not a minute ago, said Harris. Harris said that he had also seen that George had kept it there only. Then they started round the room again looking for it, and then they met again in the center and stared at one another. Now they were searching the butter in the whole room. They were roaming, they were spinning round and round, and then they were meeting again in the center of the room, and then they were looking in surprise at each other. Most extraordinary thing I have heard of, just said George. George said, this is something really extraordinary. How butter could be vanished from the chair. So mysterious, said Harris. Even Harris agreed that this was something really mysterious. Then George got round at the back of Harris and saw it. Then by chance when they were searching, George got round at the back of Harris and saw that it was actually sticking at the back of Harris. Why, here it is all the time, he exclaimed indignantly. Where? Cried Harris, spinning round. Indignantly means angrily. Now here it is all the time, he exclaimed. And now George said that okay, it was here. And Harris said where, and he just spun round वो उसने एकदम से टर्न लिया एंड स्टैंड स्टिल कांट यू रोड जॉर्ज फ्लाइंग आफ्टर हिम एंड ही वाज जस्ट jumping after him. He said, can't you stand still, stop spinning, let me take out. And they got it off, or finally they got it off from off the Harry's back and packed it in the teapot, and finally they packed this butter in the teapot. Montmorency was in it all, of course. Now, Montmorency is their pet dog and he is full of mischief. And the writer is telling that he was inside the room all the time when this packing was going on. Montmorency's ambition in life is to get in the way and be sworn at. And he is a mischievous dog. The writer is telling his ambition of life is just to get in the way of people and being scolded by them. If he can swim in anywhere where he particularly he is not wanted and be a perfect nuisance and make people mad and have things thrown at his head, then he feels his day has not been wasted. He can enter in anywhere where he is not required or where he should not supposed to be entering and be a perfect, and in that way he just create a perfect nuisance and he made people mad by interfering in their task. And then finally the people got so furious that they just thrown things at his head, and he feels that after getting such kind of treatment he feels that his day has not been wasted. Finally he has achieved his ambition to trouble the people, to get somebody to stumble over him and curse him steadily for an hour is his highest aim and object. Now, what the writer is telling that Montmorency's highest ambition and object of life is to get somebody to stumble over him. Stumble over him means to get in the way of other people and make them tumble over him. And जब वो गिरते गिरते कोई बचेगा तो definitely he will curse him for hour, और जब उसको वो curse करते हैं that is the highest aim of his life when he has succeeded in accomplish, और उसको ऐसी satisfaction his sight becomes quite unbearable. उसको इतनी satisfaction मिलती है as if he succeeded in accomplish this the aim of his life. He came and sat down on things, or the writer is actually giving this description of Montmorency, और ये अभी the way he will create the mess, ठीक है, he will participate in creating that mess which has already created by all these friends. ये नरेटर के रिमार्क्स करेक्ट भी प्रूव होंगे अबाउट Montmorency, वो यही सब चीजें करेगा. He came and sat down on things, and just when they were wanted to be packed, and he labored under the fixed belief that whenever Harris or George reached out their hand for anything, it was his cold damp nose that they wanted. He came and sat down on the things when they were supposed to be packed. The thing which was about to go into the hamper, वो उसी चीज के ऊपर बैठ जाएगा. And he labored and he worked hard under the fixed belief कि whenever Harris और George अपना हाथ बढ़ाएं कुछ उठाने के लिए, तो their hand should he just poke his cold damp nose in their hand. उसकी cold damp means जो dogs हैं उनकी nose जो है always it remain wet and cold, तो they will always have this cold and wet nose in their hands. He put his leg into the jam. He just entered his leg into the jam bottle, and he worried the teaspoons. Worried the teaspoons means it disturbed the teaspoons. The way they were kept, it just disturbed everything, and he pretended that the lemons were rat, and he was pretending as if the lemons which were packed in the hampers were rats and got into the hamper. He just entered into the hamper and killed 3 of them, means he just spoiled 3 of the lemons before Harris could land him with the frying pan. और हैरी इससे पहले कि हैरी उसको फ्राइंग पैन से हटा पाता मार के, he already done all this mess. Harry said, I encouraged him. I didn't encourage him. A dog like that doesn't want any encouragement. It's the natural original sin that is born in him that makes him do things like that. Harry said that I means Jerome, the writer, encouraged this dog, but the writer is telling that he never encouraged this dog. This kind of dog doesn't actually need any encouragement. It's his natural and original. Sin means evil actions that is born in him and that makes him to do such kind of things. The packing was done at 12:50. Finally the hamper and the bag, everything had been packed by 12:50. It was about early morning only. It was about to get the morning time. Harry sat on the big hamper. Now when the hamper got packed, तो Harry sat on the big hamper. वो उस हैम्पर के ऊपर ही बैठ गया and said he hoped nothing would be found broken. वो क्या कह रहा है कि I hope कि when we will open this hamper nothing would be found broken. George said that if anything was broken it was broken, which reflection seems to comfort him. और जॉर्ज कह रहा है कि अगर टूटेगी कोई चीज़ तो टूटेगी, और ये आइडिया उसको काफ़ी कंफर्ट दे रहा है कि इफ समथिंग वुड हैव टू ब्रेक तो इट विल ब्रेक. ही ऑल्सो सेड ही वॉज रेडी फॉर बेड. और जॉर्ज ने ये भी कहा कि नाउ इट्स टाइम टू गो टू बेड. वी वर ऑल रेडी फॉर बेड एंड वी ऑल वर रेडी टू स्लीप. हैरिस वॉज टू स्लीप विद अस दैट नाइट. हैरिस वॉज अबाउट टू स्टे विद देम, जॉर्ज एंड जीरोम के साथ ही वो रहने वाला था. एंड दे वो ऑल वेंट अपस्टेयर्स. We tossed for bed and Harris had to sleep with me. Because George and Jerome are already staying in that apartment, तो Harris was about to sleep with them. तो two beds are there, तो उन्होंने toss किया कि with whom he will share the bed, with Jerome or with George. So they tossed and finally Harris had to sleep with Jerome. Do you prefer the inside or the outside? J. Here J has been referred for the Jerome ke Jerome. So Harris asked whether the writer would prefer to sleep inside or outside the bed. I said I generally prefer to sleep inside a bed. Harris said it was odd, it was strange that you prefer to sleep inside the bed. George said, what time shall I wake you fellows? Now George asked that what time shall he wake us? Harris said 7. Harris said that he would prefer to wake up at 7 o'clock. I said no, 6, because I wanted to write some letters before leaving for the trip. So Harris and I, so again they had an argument on the timing to get up in the morning. Harris and I had a bit of a row over it. हमारे एक argument चला and but at last split the difference. और finally हमने उस difference को split कर दिया and said 6:30. Not 7, not 6. Wake us at 6:30. George, we said. George made no answer and we found on going over that he had been asleep for some time. Now, when they were arguing for the timing to get up and they came over the decision that let's split the time and get it be 6:30, and they were about to inform to George. जब वो inform कर रहे थे George को, George didn't reply and they found कि he had actually asleep a few minutes back. So we placed the bath where he could tumble into it on getting out in the morning and went to bed ourselves. Now, when they found that George had already slept, so they think about a prank, or they thought that in the morning they just placed the bathtub with full of water under the bed. और जहाँ सुबह उठते ही he just entered, his feet will enter into the tub and he could tumble into it on getting out in the morning. And then Jerome is telling I and Harris went to bed. We also slept. So this was the story written by Jerome K. Jerome, an extract from Three Men in a Boat. Very humorous and witty story, right? जिसमें राइटर ने खुद को भी ऐसी चीज़ें करते हुए दिखाया है और अपने करेक्टर्स को भी. So I hope you all have enjoyed and understood it well. I will see you in my next class, everyone. Bye.